You gave away that piece of yourself, thinking he would understand it, value it, protect it. Let me ask you something. When you hand someone the blueprint to your soul, what exactly are you expecting them to do with it? Build you up, or break you down? Because let's get one thing straight right now. Not everyone deserves access to all of you, especially not just because he smiled at you right, listened well, or whispered sweet nothings that sounded like promises. Some truths, some parts of your life, your story, your core, are not his to know. And if you've ever been burned, if you've ever looked back and said, I shouldn't have told him that, then you already know where this is going. See, women are often taught to be emotionally generous, to be open, to share. And let's be clear, that's not weakness. That's power. But power has to be managed. Otherwise, you're not offering connection. You're surrendering control. The first thing you never tell a man is how deeply you've been hurt. I'm not saying you hide your pain. I'm saying you don't put your scars in his hands and hope he'll kiss them better. Because the wrong man will use your vulnerability as ammunition. He'll store those details in the back of his mind like a hidden weapon. And the day you challenge him, the day you say no, he'll pull out your worst moment like a dagger and remind you of who you were at your lowest. Protect your pain. Not because it's shameful, but because it's sacred. You never tell him your financial weaknesses. If you're drowning in debt, recovering from financial trauma, or just learning how to build wealth, you do that on your terms, not under the microscope of someone who could manipulate that truth. Money is power. And anyone who knows where you're vulnerable can use it to trap you, control you, or make you feel less than. A man doesn't need to know how much you have or what you lack until you know his character. Not just his charm. You show him your wallet after you've seen how he handles stress, temptation, and rejection. You never tell him the full extent of your insecurities. You don't point out the parts of your body you don't love. You don't apologize for your ambition, your silence, or your assertiveness. Because if you teach him what you doubt, he may one day teach you to hate it. Let him learn to love what you love about yourself. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't belong in the inner circle of your life. You don't hand someone your self-worth and ask them to build it for you. You don't tell him everything about your past. Some stories are not secrets. They're just yours. Your mistakes, your regrets, your experiences, they made you who you are, but they do not owe him a front row seat. A man who loves you won't need a detailed tour of your pain to respect your strength. He'll see the woman standing in front of him and honor the journey without demanding the receipts. You don't share your dreams too early, because dreams are fragile in their early form. They need to be nurtured, protected, sometimes even hidden, until you've grown strong enough to pursue them without validation. Some men will support you. Others will clip your wings while smiling to your face. Know the difference, and never confuse attention with encouragement. One is a spotlight, the other is fuel. And above all, never tell a man how badly you need him. You don't hand over your independence like it's a love letter. Needing someone is not the same as choosing someone. When you tell him, I can't do this without you, you're placing your power in his hands, and if he leaves, you've convinced yourself you've got nothing left. Instead, you show him your strength. You let him witness your growth. You welcome him into your life, but never let him think he is your life. Because the second you do that, you disappear behind his shadow. What women must keep private is not about deception. It's about self-preservation. It's about knowing the difference between intimacy and exposure, between sharing and spilling, between bonding and bleeding. So the next time you're tempted to tell him everything, pause. Ask yourself, is this for love? Or is this for validation? Is this connection? Or is this control? You don't owe your truth to someone who hasn't earned your trust. Not every man deserves a seat at your table, and certainly not a key to the vault. Guard your heart like it's a crown. Because once you give it away too freely, don't be surprised when someone wears it like a trophy, then walks away. You never reveal the deepest emotional wounds too early. And I know, it feels good to be seen, to finally meet someone who listens, who looks at you like you matter, who says all the right things when you start to open up. But here's the harsh reality most people don't want to admitting. Just because someone listens doesn't mean they care. And just because they're gentle in the beginning doesn't mean they'll stay that way. You don't bleed in front of someone you barely know and expect them to stop the hemorrhaging. You test character, not charisma. Because when you hand a man your pain before he's earned your trust, you're hoping he'll handle it with care. But what if he doesn't? What if he stores that story away, and later, when things get messy, he pulls it out and uses it against you? What if he throws it back in your face to silence you, to humble you, or to win an argument? That's not love. That's emotional blackmail, and it starts the moment you overshare with someone who hasn't proven themselves. Your pain is not a currency you exchange for closeness. It's not something you lay at his feet so he can validate your worth. You've survived it. You've walked through fire, picked up your pieces, stitched yourself together. That story is power. And power isn't handed out on the first date. It isn't wrapped in a late-night confession or shared over coffee because he feels different. Let him earn it. Let him show up consistently. Let him stand by you when there's no advantage in doing so. And even then, you decide what to share and what to protect. Your emotional wounds are not an invitation for pity. They are a testament to your strength. But that strength gets diluted when you place it in the hands of someone who hasn't earned the right to carry it. You didn't survive just to hand over your survival story to someone who's still proving they even belong in your life. You don't open your books and show him your financial weaknesses. Not because you're hiding something, but because money is one of the quickest ways to lose control if you're not careful. A woman who isn't grounded in her financial power becomes easy to manipulate, easy to guilt, easy to trap. And the moment you tell a man you're drowning in debt, struggling with savings, or still figuring out how to build wealth, you're placing your independence on the table, and trusting that he won't use it against you. That's a gamble you don't take lightly. The wrong man hears that and sees opportunity. Opportunity to dominate decisions. Opportunity to lead under the illusion of love, but really, he's laying the groundwork for control. He starts to dictate how you spend, what you buy, who you rely on. And before you know it, you're asking for permission instead of making decisions. That's not partnership. That's submission disguised as support. Don't fall for it. Financial vulnerability is not romantic. It doesn't make you relatable. It makes you exposed. He doesn't need to know your credit score, your student loans, or the details of your bank account just because he bought you dinner and listened to your story. You don't owe him that kind of access until he's proven he's safe, stable, and secure, not just in money, but in mindset. Watch how he handles his own responsibilities. Watch how he treats waitstaff, how he manages his time, how he reacts to inconvenience. That's where you learn who he really is. Not in the way he talks, but in the way he lives. Your financial narrative is yours. You are allowed to build in private. You are allowed to recover without an audience. And most of all, you are allowed to grow in silence until you're strong enough to walk into any room and know, I don't need a man to fix me. I've got this. When you know your worth, you stop offering discounts. When you know your value, you stop explaining your balance sheet to anyone who hasn't earned your trust. You don't hand a man a map to your insecurities and expect him to protect them. That's not how it works. Because once you point out the parts of yourself you don't like, the things you criticize in the mirror, the parts you shrink when you walk into a room, you've just shown him where you believe you're weak. And maybe he won't say anything right away. Maybe he'll act like it doesn't matter. But the moment tension hits, the moment control becomes the goal, those very insecurities you laid bare will be used to silence you, shame you, or keep you small. A woman's insecurities are often the softest places in her armor. They're not signs of failure. They're human. But when you tell a man exactly where you don't feel enough, you're teaching him how to shape your self-worth. And if he's not grounded, not secure, not whole himself, he'll mold that information to serve his ego, not your healing. He'll twist it into casual comments that sting when you least expect it. He'll laugh it off like a joke, but you'll feel the weight of it for days. That's not love. That's erosion. Little by little, it chips away at you. And let's be honest. How many times have you said something like, I hate my thighs, or I'm just not good at that, and watched as the energy in the room shifted? It might have seemed innocent, but what you really did was hand someone permission to agree. You opened the door for your self-doubt to be reinforced, and once someone validates what you already question about yourself, it becomes twice as hard to unlearn. No man should be the voice that defines your beauty, your brilliance, or your boundaries. If you're going to speak about yourself, speak from power. Speak from what you love, not what you love. And if you're still working on that confidence, fine, do the work in silence. Build it quietly, privately, fiercely. Because when you start owning your value, you stop inviting people to confirm it. You stop looking for mirrors and start being the reflection. Let him fall in love with your confidence, your energy, your light, not the cracks you hope he'll fill. Because if you don't believe you're enough, there will always be someone waiting to confirm that for you. And usually, it won't be in your favor. You don't owe any man the full tour of your past. Not the mess, not the regrets, not the moments that broke you. And let me tell you something. Just because someone asks doesn't mean they deserve an answer. There is a difference between being honest and being exposed. Some stories are not about shame. They're about boundaries. You don't need to hand him every chapter of your life so he can decide if you're worthy. You are not a confession booth. You are not here to be judged, fixed, or forgiven. Too many women think that if they lay everything out, the mistakes, the heartbreaks, the choices they wish they could undo, that it will somehow make them more lovable. That transparency equals intimacy. It doesn't. Not when it's handed to someone who hasn't earned it. Not when you're giving it out hoping he won't run away. If he runs, good. Let him. Better to lose someone because you didn't spill everything than to keep someone who only stays because you gave him control of your past. And here's the real danger. When you tell a man everything you've survived, everything that almost broke you, you give him insight into your emotional wiring. And if he's not the right man, if he's not grounded, evolved, emotionally intelligent, he won't protect that knowledge. He'll weaponize it. He'll use it in arguments. He'll throw it back in your face when you're trying to stand tall. You're acting like a saint now, but you told me what you did. You think you're being brave. What you're being is vulnerable with someone who hasn't earned your trust. Let him fall for the woman you are now. Let him ask questions, sure. But you control the narrative. You don't lie, but you don't overshare. Your past doesn't need to be proof of your worth. The fact that you're here, stronger, wiser, more grounded, that's all the proof you need. The right man won't need the entire backstory to respect the woman in front of him. And the wrong man will take your truth and twist it into leverage. Some stories are sacred. Some pain is private. You didn't survive just to have your survival dissected like a case file. You hold your past like a medal, not a wound. Let them wonder. Let them earn your truth. Because once you hand it over too fast, you can't take it back. You don't hand your dreams to someone just because he's listening. Just because he looks at you like he believes in you doesn't mean he truly does. Dreams are sacred. They're fragile in their early stages, still forming, still finding their footing. And when you expose them too early, before you've built the courage to stand on your own, before you've protected them with discipline and clarity, you give someone else the chance to shake them, to question them, to clip your wings while smiling to your face. You think it's support, but often it's sabotage wearing a comforting disguise. How many times have you shared a dream too soon, only to watch someone raise an eyebrow, smirk, or say something that made you second-guess your ability? And it's subtle. That's the dangerous part. It doesn't always come as direct criticism. Sometimes it's a joke, a passive-aggressive comment, a quiet doubt disguised as concern. That's a hard field to break into. Do you really think people would take you seriously doing that? You sure you're not dreaming too big? And they say it like they care. But what they're really doing is planting seeds of insecurity inside your vision. And you water those seeds. Not because you're weak, but because you were taught to second-guess yourself. You were taught to seek approval, to make others feel comfortable with your ambition. Women are told to dream small, quietly, politely, like they're asking for permission to take up space. And when you share your dream with a man who hasn't earned your trust, who doesn't have the capacity to truly support you, what you're really doing is handing him a mirror, And depending on who he is, he'll either reflect your power or distort it. See, not every man wants to see you rise. That's the uncomfortable truth. Some are only comfortable when they're above you, when you're chasing them, when your light doesn't threaten to outshine theirs. And the moment your dream demands attention, resources, or independence, that same man might begin to chip away at it, not always with cruelty, sometimes with silence, sometimes with withdrawal. You'll feel the shift, less encouragement, less energy, less presence. It's subtle, but you'll feel it in your bones. Like he's silently saying, I liked you better when you needed me more than you needed yourself. So you protect your vision. You build it in silence. You water it with discipline, not validation. Because the man who truly belongs in your life will never feel threatened by your fire. He'll never shrink in the presence of your ambition. He'll never ask you to dim your light so he can feel brighter. He won't need you to prove anything. He'll want you to thrive, not just because it makes you happy, but because he understands that a woman in her power is a force, and he wants to walk beside that force, not control it. And let me say this, just because a man listens doesn't mean he understands. There's a difference between attention and alignment. A man can nod his head while you talk about your goals and still not support them when it counts. Watch what he does when it requires sacrifice. Watch what he does when your dream takes time away from him, when it demands your focus, when it elevates you. That's when you'll see his truth. Not in his compliments, but in his actions. And you don't need a cheerleader. You need a partner. Someone who isn't intimidated by your purpose. Someone who doesn't just clap from the sidelines but helps clear the path. And until that man shows up, and proves through action, not words, that he can handle your rise, you keep your dream close to your chest. You build it brick by brick, protecting it from people who would rather see you safe than successful. Because here's what they don't tell Yug. Sometimes the biggest threat to your dream is the person who says they love you. And I'm not saying don't love him. I'm saying don't lose yourself in him. Don't mold your goals around his comfort. Don't silence your calling because it makes him insecure. Your dreams were planted in you for a reason, not in him, in you. That's not an accident. That's your responsibility. So don't sit there hoping he'll get it. Don't wait for his permission. Don't explain it 12 different ways hoping he'll suddenly become supportive. Build it anyway, without applause, without validation, without needing him to see the full picture. Because the right man will walk in and respect the masterpiece you're creating, even if he wasn't there when the first stroke was painted. And when you do share, because there will be a time when you open that door. Make sure you've already claimed it. Make sure your dream is rooted so deeply that no one's opinion can uproot it. Make sure you're not asking, do you think I can do this? But saying, this is what I'm doing. You in or out, that's power. That's clarity. And that's how you protect your purpose. The truth is, women are taught to hand over their hopes too soon, to tie them to relationships, to shrink them for comfort, to wait for the right time, the right mood, the right approval. And while you're waiting, the dream withers. It loses its edge. You start asking for advice from people who've never built anything. You start believing the opinions of people who never walked your path. And suddenly, that dream that once lit you up, it's buried under doubt. But that doesn't have to be your story. You get to protect it. You get to say, not yet. You get to be silent while you grow strong. And when you do speak, when you finally share it with someone, you won't be looking for validation. You'll be offering them the honor of being part of something unstoppable. Because real support doesn't ask you to tone it down. It says, how can I help you go further? You want to know what to keep private. Your vision, your calling, your purpose. Not because it's a secret, but because it's sacred, and sacred things aren't handed out carelessly. They're guarded, respected, honored, so until the day you look at him and know, not hope, not guess, not wish, but know, that he's safe enough, solid enough, humble enough to stand next to you without fear or control, you hold that dream close. You protect it like your future depends on it, because it does. You never tell a man how badly you need him. Not because you're heartless, not because you don't care, but because the second those words leave your mouth, I can't do this without you. You hand over a piece of your power, and the wrong man will take it. He won't say anything at first. He might even pull you closer. But inside, he now knows that your sense of safety, your ability to breathe, your emotional balance, all of it is tied to him. That's not intimacy. That's dependency. And dependency gives birth to manipulation in all the quiet, subtle ways you never see coming until it's too late. Because the man who knows you can't walk away is a man who has no reason to treat you like you might. He stops trying. He stops showing up fully. He stops being intentional. Why? Because he knows you'll stay. He knows you've anchored your strength to him. And the moment you do that, you lose the ability to make clear decisions. You start choosing peace over truth, comfort over growth. You silence your instincts just to preserve the connection. That's not love. That's emotional survival. You don't need a man to complete you. You're already whole. If he adds to your life, beautiful. If he inspires you, great. If he walks beside you while you're building your empire, stronger together. But he is not your oxygen. He is not your identity. And he is not your salvation. And if you've ever found yourself begging for him to stay, crying in silence, or giving more of yourself than you knew you could afford, then you've already seen what happens when you make a man the center of your stability. The real truth. The moment a man feels needed more than chosen, the dynamic shifts. You think it's vulnerability. You think you're opening up. What he hears is, I have control now. You start over explaining your emotions. You start asking instead of stating. You start hoping instead of deciding. And slowly, the version of you that was once grounded, bold, and unstoppable begins to fade into someone who waits for his approval before making a move. That's not what you were built for. You weren't meant to shrink in order to be held. You weren't born to chase. You weren't created to live in fear of abandonment. You were designed to stand, to speak, to lead. And any man who sees that strength and feels threatened by it, who hears your voice and tries to lower the volume, who watches your independence and tries to undermine it, that man doesn't deserve access to you, let alone ownership of your emotions. So when you feel the pull to tell him how much you need him, pause. Ask yourself, is this love or is this fear? Because real love isn't about dependence. It's about partnership. It's about choosing each other from strength, not weakness. And a man who truly respects you doesn't want you needy. He wants you rooted. He wants to stand beside a woman who could do it all without him, but chooses not to, because she sees his value, not because she's lost without it. You want to love him. Fine. You want to let him in. Beautiful. But don't ever forget who you were before he came. Don't ever tie your peace to someone else's presence. Because the second you do, your power becomes conditional. And a powerful woman is not built on conditions. She's built on truth. You never hand over your emotional blueprint too quickly. Because the moment you do, you're not just being open. You're giving someone the keys to dismantle you. And let's be clear, not everyone is going to use your truth with care. Some people don't want to understand you. They want to know how to manage you, control you, influence you, and when you lay it all out too soon, your fears, your triggers, your past traumas, your patterns, you're showing him exactly how to get inside your head. You're giving away the manual before you've even figured out if he deserves to read the cover. There's a difference between connection and exposure, between sharing and surrendering. A lot of women confuse the two because we're taught that love means no walls, that being vulnerable means giving someone everything. But what you're really doing is auditioning for acceptance, hoping that if you show him the full picture, the struggles, the cracks, the pressure points, he'll love you more for it. But the truth is, that level of access is not love, it's leverage, and if the wrong man is holding it, he's not protecting you, he's calculating. He's learning how to calm you down, how to stir you up, how to keep you guessing. He knows which buttons to press, which silences to use, which words to repeat because they work. And the part that hurts most, he'll often do it with a smile, with warmth. He'll make you feel safe first, just safe enough to start ignoring the red flags, just safe enough that when things shift, you'll doubt yourself before you'll ever doubt him. And this doesn't just happen in toxic relationships. It happens in the subtle, quiet dynamics where you think you're building something solid, where it feels like love, because manipulation doesn't always scream. It whispers, it mimics understanding, It mirrors your pain and then slowly uses it to hold you in place. So no, you don't give someone the full map of your emotional world before they've earned your trust through actions. Not words, not potential, not chemistry, action, consistency, integrity. You don't tell him what makes you feel small until you've seen how he handles power, true strength. You don't tell him what you're afraid of until you've seen what he does when you're not at your best, true strength. And you don't tell him what you're working to heal until you're certain he won't rip those stitches open the first time he's hurting. You have to learn to observe before you reveal. Let him earn his way in. Let him show you how he handles his own emotions before you hand him yours. Watch how he behaves when you say no, how he responds to distance, how he reacts when you hold a boundary. Because if he only wants access when it's easy, then what he's looking for isn't intimacy. It's control disguised as closeness. This isn't about being guarded. This is about being intentional. You are not difficult because you don't overshare. You are not cold because you want to be sure. You are protecting the most valuable thing you have, your inner world. And that world does not belong to someone just because he knows how to ask the right questions or makes you feel butterflies. Butterflies are not evidence. They are adrenaline, and adrenaline doesn't build relationships. Character does, so if you've been told you're too closed off, too cautious, too slow to trust, good. That means you're thinking. That means you're not just handing over yourself in pieces to someone hoping they'll put you back together. That means you know your power, and more importantly, you're learning how to keep it. You don't invite a man into your spiritual life until you know he won't try to reshape it. What you believe, what grounds you, what keeps you standing when everything feels like it's falling apart. That is sacred, and sacred things don't get handed out like casual conversation. Your relationship with God, with faith, with energy, with your inner compass, whatever name you give it, is not a debate. It's not something you open up just to be questioned, tested, or bent to fit someone else's comfort zone. Too many women hand over their spiritual center thinking it will bring closeness, thinking, if he sees this part of me, maybe he'll understand me better. But if he's not built to honor what you believe, he won't connect with it. He'll try to control it. He'll minimize it. He'll analyze it. He'll challenge you with half-formed opinions, and disguise it as playing devil's advocate. And here's the problem. You'll find yourself explaining things that were never meant to be explained. You'll start justifying truths that have always lived quietly, powerfully inside you. And that subtle erosion, that's where self-doubt begins. Because the wrong man will make you feel like your beliefs are baggage, like your connection to something greater is inconvenient. He'll act like your practices, your prayer, your meditation, your rituals, are just quirks. He'll tolerate them, not respect them. And when someone tolerates what's sacred to you, what they're really saying is, this part of you makes me uncomfortable, but I'll put up with it for now. Let me be clear, a man who tries to intellectualize your spirit without first learning to listen, he's not honoring you. He's positioning himself above you. He's assuming that logic alone rules the world, and if it doesn't fit into a clean, explainable framework, it must be flawed. But what he's really revealing is that he's not comfortable with anything he can't control. And spirituality, by its very nature, isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be lived, felt, experienced, quietly and powerfully. Your spiritual core is your anchor. It's what gets you back up when life knocks you down. It's what gives you vision when the world goes dark. And if a man can't respect that, if he rolls his eyes, if he makes jokes, if he goes silent every time you bring it up, he's showing you exactly how far his leadership can go. A man who cannot honor the unseen parts of you will never protect the visible ones. So you hold that part of yourself close. You don't share your spiritual path until he's proven that he walks with humility, not arrogance, that he listens more than he talks, that he can sit with something he doesn't fully understand and not feel the need to dismantle it. Because you're not looking for agreement. You're looking for reverence. You're looking for a man who understands that your strength comes not just from what you know, but from what you believe. And if he truly sees you, if he respects your mind, your heart, your convictions, he won't try to alter your faith. He'll admire it. He'll ask questions because he's curious, not because he's looking for contradictions. He'll step into your world not to judge it, but to witness it. And when you find that, that's when you choose to let him in, not before. Spiritual connection isn't a game. It's not an accessory to impress someone. It's the core of who you are. And if you give that core away too soon, to someone who hasn't shown they can carry it with care, don't be surprised when you find yourself doubting the very thing that once gave you power. Some things aren't meant to be explained. They're meant to be held, and if he can't hold it with respect, he doesn't belong in the space where your spirit lives. You don't explain or defend your independence to a man, ever. Your drive, your ambition, your solitude, your strength. Those aren't things you apologize for. They're not personality flaws. They're not things to tone down to make someone else feel more comfortable. But too often, women find themselves doing just that. Softening their voice, shrinking their presence, editing their ambition, just to protect his ego, just to avoid being called too much. And let me tell you right now, if a man thinks your independence is a threat, he's not strong enough to walk beside you. From the time we're young, we're taught to make ourselves smaller, to be agreeable, to not intimidate, to soften our edges so we don't scare anyone off. So when a woman shows up in her power, when she earns her own money, speaks her own mind, builds her own life, it's still seen by some men as a challenge, not a choice. You show up with your own table, your own seat, your own damn nameplate. And suddenly you're too intimidating, too distant, or the worst one. You act like you don't need anyone. Let me say this clearly, you don't need anyone to survive. You choose people to thrive. There's a difference. You choose a partner, not a rescuer. You choose someone to stand next to you, not someone to fix you. And if a man sees your independence and starts to withdraw, question your loyalty, or accuse you of not knowing how to be in a relationship, that's not your problem. That's his insecurity screaming for attention. You don't sit there trying to convince him that just because you're strong doesn't mean you don't feel. That just because you're successful doesn't mean you don't love deeply. That just because you're capable doesn't mean you wouldn't welcome someone who supports you. You don't perform emotional gymnastics to reassure a man who's already shown you he's uncomfortable with your power. That's not love. That's ego management. And you weren't put on this earth to carry someone else's insecurity on your back like it's your cross to bear. Real independence isn't cold. It's clear. It means you know how to lead yourself. It means you've done the work to build a life that makes sense to you, not one that waits for validation. It means you can be alone without being lonely. It means you don't flinch when someone pulls away, because your identity doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from being aligned. And that scares people. Especially people who are still looking for relationships that complete them instead of ones that challenge them to grow. You do not explain why you work late nights building your vision. You do not explain why you need quiet time to think. You do not explain why your goals are non-negotiable. You don't explain your boundaries, your routines, your rhythms. Because your life is not a courtroom, and he is not the judge. Your independence is not on trial. You are not seeking permission to be who you are. And if a man tries to dim your fire, even subtly, if he suggests you're too busy for love, or that maybe you'd be happier if you slowed down, hear that for what it is. That's not guidance. That's fear disguised as care. That's someone who's more comfortable with a version of you that stays small. The right man will never ask you to shrink. He won't compete with your strength. He'll be drawn to it. He won't question your ambition. He'll admire it. He won't feel replaced by your self-sufficiency. He'll respect it, because he's already built his own. So you don't defend your independence. You don't package it in prettier words. You live it. You walk in it. You protect it, because the minute you start justifying it, you're giving someone else the chance to redefine it. And that's how powerful women lose themselves, not all at once, but one explanation at a time. You set boundaries on what access he has to your personal world, and you do it unapologetically. Just because a man is in your life doesn't mean he gets a backstage pass to everything you think, feel, or do. Access is earned. Access is monitored. access is not granted just because he says the right things, shows up a few times, or makes you feel seen for a moment. Your life, your space, your energy, your time, is not a free-for-all, it's a fortress. And not everyone deserves to get through the gates. There's this idea floating around that love means full transparency, that if you care about someone, you're supposed to let them into every corner of your existence. Tell them everything, involve them in every decision, consult them on every feeling. But that's not love. That's codependency with a prettier name. Love isn't measured by how much access you give. It's measured by how well someone respects your boundaries when you say, "This part of me is mine." And here's the thing, some men will test you, quietly, strategically. They'll inch closer and closer into your space, not to respect it, but to control it. They'll start small. Maybe they question who you spend your time with. They want to know every detail of your day. They ask to see things they don't need to see. At first, it feels like interest, like connection. But over time, it turns into surveillance. You start second-guessing your choices. You start filtering yourself. You become more focused on managing their comfort than protecting your peace. You don't owe a man your schedule. You don't owe him your passwords. You don't owe him constant explanations for how you spend your time or who you spend it with. You don't owe him emotional access 247, especially when you're trying to process something privately. That's not secrecy. That's sovereignty. And a man who can't respect your right to privacy is a man who doesn't know how to trust without control. Look at how he handles no. Look at how he responds when you ask for space. When you assert a limit, when you say, "This is where you stop." A man who respects you won't push against your boundaries. He'll protect them with you. He won't take offense when you keep something to yourself. He won't make your independence about his ego. He'll recognize that a healthy relationship isn't built on constant access. It's built on mutual respect and individual strength. And the minute you feel like you have to justify your boundaries or soften them to keep the peace, understand what's happening. You're not building trust. You're surrendering it, piece by piece. And once someone gets used to having unlimited access to you, they start to expect it. They start to feel entitled to it. And entitlement is the death of respect. So you guard your personal world like it's your legacy. Because it is. The way you move, the way you think, the way you operate. It all matters. It's all part of the life you've built with intention. And if a man wants to be part of that world, he has to prove he can respect it. Not invade it. Not control it. Not smother it. Respect it. You're not cold for protecting your space. You're not distant for having boundaries. You're not difficult for expecting emotional maturity. You are a woman who knows that not everyone is qualified to be close. And when you live from that place, when you stop handing out all access passes to people who haven't shown they deserve them, you don't become harder. You become wiser, stronger, clearer. And you make room for the kind of love that doesn't demand entry, but waits to be invited. So here's what you need to remember. Your power as a woman doesn't lie in how much you give, but in how well you guard. Guard your emotions. Guard your energy. Guard your identity. Not with walls, but with wisdom. Because the moment you stop handing over pieces of yourself for validation, you stop bleeding out your power just to feel accepted. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your heart, your past, or your peace. Especially not a man who hasn't earned it. The truth is, not everything needs to be shared to be real. Not everything private has to become public just because someone claims to love you. Love that demands exposure without respect isn't love. It's control, and love that asks you to shrink, to dim, to reveal your soul before trust is built, that's not connection. That's manipulation. Real strength is quiet. It's intentional. It doesn't prove, it chooses. And a powerful woman always chooses what stays sacred, what stays hers, and what never leaves her hands, no matter how charming the man or convincing the moment. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to live aligned, strong, self-led. So never apologize for protecting your private world. It's not weakness. It's the reason you'll never be broken. Got it? If you'd like to continue expanding the remaining points or need timestamps, SEO content, or summaries, I'm ready when you are.